We only have three of us that are really in the business, and then Clem, of course, is there part time and watching things, kind of overseeing things every once in
Yeah,
a
I
while.
keep,
But
PCL, some people say it stands for poor Clem Lesch, but that that my dad started that rumor. It's Pauline and Clem Lesch.
Yeah,
And so it's
that's great.
yeah, poor Clem Lesch. So I've had it before where people have pulled me to the side and or pulled people to the side and said, "You're not going to believe this. You know what PCL stands for?" And they'll say it stands for poor Clem Lesch. And then I say, "Well, not technically, it doesn't, but yeah, I get it."
Let me give you the true story. I love that. I love
That's
that.
right.
This is off the cuff. I guess speaking of that and shortage in the industry, of course, you guys see it more than anybody probably in the country. I mean, the two hottest markets, maybe the nation, DFW and Austin for the economy. Texas, number one economy in the nation right now. Um, uh, yeah, I guess you guys are really big about trades too, CTE, kids in high school,
yeah,
public schools, private schools, hopefully too across Texas. They
Oh,
need to learn
absolutely.
the trades because we got all these projects and then a gap between workers,
the
right?
qualified workforce is
Yeah.
just not there. They're not interested in that type of work.
Yeah, I grew up out in the country in Valley View and
Yeah,
just, an hour north of Dallas here. And
we got
that's
on the
awesome.
we got on the map because of the
That's
tornado
great.
recently.
the recent tornadoes went just a mile past my parents' house and hit their
Wow.
exit where that travel center was. So it was
Yep.
it was really close to to where I grew up. But it growing up in the country, I did FFA and ag and all that stuff. And so
That's awesome.
and being in the country, you did things like welding and other types of things that would be considered, I guess, trades, right?
Right.
And so, but I always say this: my parents, they've always been in the construction industry in one way or another. My mom worked for a developer at one time. My dad was bond manager at the Hartford, and he had worked at USF&G, which is now part of Travelers, years ago. And the construction industry really, it's paid for my whole life,
Yep.
because from before I was born, they were already in the industry. And all my life, the construction industry paid for me to grow up. I feel like I owe the construction industry a lot for that. We
Wow.
give back a lot. We volunteer at the CEF and the Texo when they do their events. They've done their events to for bringing in high schoolers or getting high schoolers
ASA.
interested. Of course,
Nice.
ASA and partners in that, which ASA being part of TCA, the American Subcontractor
So was
Association,
Sam.
and SAM, Subcontractor Association, the Metroplex. There's so many associations that we belong to,
That we
and
almost were in the beginnings of, and the
yeah, and that we donate our time to and our money
resources too.
and time to help those associations. But education's always been, I Melissa knows, every time I meet a teenager, I talk to them about the trades. It's like
That's
a
awesome.
lot of them don't realize the kind of life they can have if they go into the trades.
Right.
And I don't, I mean, bond business, I'm not making any money about it. These kids aren't necessarily going to work for me. It doesn't, but what we do, we work hard to support our industry.
That's
We
really not
believe in our industry, so
very well said. Very, very kind and beautiful words from both of you. That's really great. And speaking of, I guess maybe that's one of them. You allude to it, you guys. What's the beauty of your business for PCL bonding that you absolutely love doing within your line of work? I guess educating people and working with people, and then I'll let you elaborate. What's maybe a big giant one or two challenges of just the bonding business as a whole.
Yeah, for me, I love learning. And every day it's something new. Clients come to us with a problem, and that's what I love. Whenever they come to me and they're like, "I have a problem," I don't
Yeah,
care what that problem is. I'm going to try to find a solution. And so it can be they might be having trouble negotiation with the GC, and they're trying to figure out language. We we talk to them on contract language.
We've seen so many contracts
we
over
see
the
so many
years.
contracts.
So.
We're not attorneys, but when a client needs to just kind of bounce ideas off somebody or have somebody take a second look at something, that's where we come in. But it can be the craziest things. One of our clients, they fell victim to one of those scams where somebody created a fake website that had an extra I in the name of the company. So it was painting with IING, right, .com. They replicated all their emails with signatures and everything and
Wow.
convinced another contractor to send payment to a bank account for the scammers.
Wow.
Well, they saw that out there and we started talking about it. They said, well, this website's out there. Well, I said, you know what? Let me call Google, because I found out Google was it had that domain was rested on Google. So I called Google up and they cut it off. But it's like,
Wow.
I don't care what the problem is,
Uh,
whether it's bond related or whatever. If my clients come to me with a problem, I'm going to try to find a way to help them, regardless. I don't mind making phone calls to owners, general contractors, subcontractors, suppliers, to find out what's happening on a project. If my client's not getting paid, I don't mind making phone calls to people to find out why, or if other people are experiencing the same problems. I don't have those problems. I don't mind calling a GC and asking them about their terms on their contract.
right.
I don't mind calling cities and telling them, hey, this language that you're putting on there isn't good for the industry.
Right.
This is what it's causing by putting that on there. Those are all things we do. And then, of course, the legislative effort that we do, going down to Austin. I mean, meeting with our legislators,
Right.
our representative Giovanni Capriglione,
Been great.
Yeah.
he's been great, and he's been a great supporter of the construction industry, and
He is.
we're very blessed to have great supporters in there, like a Keith Bell,
Yep.
contractor himself, and so we get a lot of enjoyment out of the legislative effort, and we've had a lot of great successes.
Like
Over
the challenges, like we were talking about, the product hasn't changed, bonding hasn't changed itself. The people is kind of like the challenges. The industry is, the changing, it's evolving technology. You got to deal with that. The emerging AI,
Yeah,
so
technology. I mean, bonds themselves, I consider bonds to be very easy.
Right.
It's some paper. It's got a seal on it. It's got signatures on it, and we ship it out the door, right?
Right.
But the thing that we have to do that makes us valuable is our knowledge, knowing
the
who to
length of
talk
time
to,
we've been.
how quickly we react, how quickly we can get things done.
Yeah.
Those are the things that make us valuable to our clients. I mean, anybody can print a piece of paper,
Right.
so the bonds themselves, but our relationships with our surety companies, we've got great surety companies. So, and one thing that I didn't get into is, really what a bond, how it looks, but it's a three-party contract between the principal, who's our client,
Our
Right.
our pal, right? That's our client. The surety company, that's like a Travelers or a
Merchants.
Merchants or a Markel SureTech or um, some of those, and then we have the obligee, who is the owner or the GC that's getting the benefit of the bond, right?
Right.
And that's a contract bond. I mean, that's what we specialize in, is contract bonds for construction. That product has remained unchanged for really decades. I mean, century maybe, but so that's not a challenge for us because it doesn't really change. But the technology is changing, and that will change some of how we operate.
Fascinating. I really could. You guys could talk about it for hours, and I could listen. It's really, really fascinating. Of course, you guys are a proud member of TCA, and we've mentioned that peppered throughout the interview. And we're proud to represent PCL Bonding. Just such fine folks you are, and your company, and you really hear that in this interview, folks. Solid, wonderful quality people at PCL. Talk about your relationship with TCA, and then you've peppered it too, Eric. Talk about some statutory challenges. Uh, we got You got a great representative there in Dallas. and Giovanni, and he really is a friend of the construction industry. Talk about some statutory challenges within the industry as it relates to subcontractors and suppliers. What are some challenges within the bonding business and the construction industry here in Texas that we need to change for the better? Maybe some things, 2 or 3 things y'all are looking for to hopefully change in this next upcoming session.
We made a lot of change in the last session with the lien law reform. We've been working on that for a long time, and we've really seen a lot of changes in that. We used to make fun of it when we talk about it that California's lien law is simpler than our lien law, and I said then we have a problem, in Texas.
Yeah, that's
We got a
pretty
big
bad
problem
when
there.
California has a better, simpler
Like
lien law
ours
than
is this
Texas.
big in
Yeah.
California.
Ours is pretty convoluted, the process, and it's sometimes difficult to protect your money. But the main issues,
Retainage is a big
yeah,
issue
really
for
the
us.
biggest issues
Yeah.
we have all revolve around transparency.
Right.
There's when you're down in a project as a subcontractor, you have very little visibility into the money, how the money's flowing, or even sometimes your contracts. Like you'll in your contract, you'll have a provision, a flow through provision that says the prime contract is part of your contract.
Right.
Well, the question is, did you get it?
Have you
Yeah.
even seen it?
Have you seen that prime contract?
And you can't see portions of the contract. That blows my mind. I
Yeah,
mean,
that you would sign up for something, that you would sign a contract and maybe even provide a bond giving your guarantee on that project that you're going to finish it and pay all the bills, and you haven't even seen all the terms of the contract. And that's those kind of things are mind blowing to me. But it happens every day, and companies, contractors are willing to continue doing that work because maybe they have a good relationship with that contractor, so they trust. Well, it works out fine until there's a problem. But yeah, the transparency is the biggest thing. We can't see into things, so we have to get stuff up front, right? We have to get, prime contract up front. Well, there's no statutory requirement for those documents referenced to be given to you. Those reference documents to be given to you. And one of the things we're trying to pass is a law that would say that if you weren't provided those documents, you can't be held to them.
right.
They have to be provided in order to be for you to be held to them. One of the great things I think it's great, but we'll see how it plays out, because any new statutes that get implemented, any new laws we get passed, until they're tested, until they're actually tested in court or through the legals with the attorneys, you really don't know how good that law is going to be. And sometimes there's a decent number of loopholes that end up, you find them, and then you have to correct those in future legislative sessions, which, mind you, they only meet once every 2 years.
Right.
So you find a problem, you've got to wait 2 years to fix that problem. And sometimes the problems are significant.
Yeah.
But we got a law passed this last time for change orders.
Yeah.
And
that was big.
it says, it says if there's more than 10% of unsigned owner directed change orders, then you don't have to proceed with those change orders.
Right.
Okay, if in aggregate more than 10% of the original contract amount is unsigned, you don't have to proceed with them. So it gives the contractors, because change orders are very
notorious
difficult. They're very difficult because you get directed to do it, to make a change order, go and complete a change order, but you haven't agreed on the price yet.
Right.
So it's almost like, hey, do the work and then we'll talk about how much we're going to pay you for the work.
Yeah.
And then in your contract, you have language that'll say things like, if the owner doesn't approve it, you're not going to get paid for it. Well, wait a minute, you told me to do it. What do you mean I'm not going to get paid for it? So you're telling me to do it, and at the end of the day, if the owner doesn't approve it, I'm not going to get paid for it.
Yeah, if it's not signed off by the owner and someone else.
So I definitely am not a fan of change orders. And you need to know, is the change order being directed by the contractor or the owner?
Yeah. Some of the stuff you can't believe, like the statutory code we posted yesterday on TCA social media, which was a positive change. The sub can halt their work if an invoice isn't paid. What? I mean, that wasn't on the books before. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's sometimes people find it hard to believe what goes on in the industry. The thing is that there are great GCs out there. There are great
Yeah,
subs out there, and by
there
and
are.
large, we've got a
Yeah.
lot of great contractors and great construction professionals in this industry.